All right, everybody, with us this week, we have the founders of Side Hustle Beer Company. They're located in Hilton Head, South Carolina. These two gentlemen had quite the journey, from multiple years in corporate America to award-winning home brewer competitions. These two decided to create a business and a brewery that are becoming very popular down south and very popular amongst people that visit South Carolina. But Mike Palmieri, Lee Holyoak, again, the founders of Side Hustle Brewing. First and foremost, good morning. We're finally doing an 8:30 in the morning interview. It's been a while trying to plan this, but welcome on to the Beers, Business, and Balls podcast. And just in a few words, introduce yourself. Who is Mike Palmieri and Lee Holyoak, and who are they at Side Hustle?
Yeah, for myself, Mike Palmieri, I'm an old wireless industry veteran. Got into that back in 1987, which was a great opportunity. The industry was young and really just grew with it as it evolved the past 3 decades at this point. So that was my primary career. I'm a business person at heart. That's what I've always done. I enjoy craft beer, but I am purely all about business. So Lee is the beer side of the house.
Lee, who are you and what's your side? How'd you get to Side Hustle?
Oh, I've many paths and turns to get here, but I was born and raised in Sydney, Australia. I came over to the US in 1990. I was actually a tennis player. So I was a competitive tennis player, highly ranked junior in Australia. I was recruited to play college tennis over here. And so anyway, I ended up staying here, and my whole career was based around tennis. I was tried to play a little bit professionally, not so well, but got into the tennis business, and so over my whole working career, I was in the club arena, running tennis clubs and teaching lessons and things like that. So from there, I got into beer through my wife. My wife, when I first, before we got married, when I first met her, she was she still is in the wine business and the sommelier. So she taught me how to taste wine, and I kind of got into beer that way. I started to realize that you can taste really well-made craft beer the same way as wine, and that started my whole craft beer journey. And along the way, had met up with Mike, and here we are. We've just recently opened Side Hustle Beer Company.
I want to hear about your tennis career too a little bit later on, but Mike, we'll start with you. You had quite the experience in corporate America. You had about 25 years by my count, including around 15 at the VP level or higher. You were the executive vice president of Prime Communications for about 9 years. A lot of that experience before that was at AT&T. You're running mergers and acquisitions, among many other hats. So what were some of the lessons you learned? Well, that's a long time to spend in corporate America. So there must have been some lessons you took out of that. And eventually, what was the tipping point for you to go and say, I'm done with this. I'm starting my own side hustle and turn it into my livelihood?
Yeah, certainly spending that much time in a corporate environment, the opportunity to learn and to develop, clearly in 30 years time, you're going to be surrounded by a lot of different people. You're going to gain so many experiences. Some are really great, some aren't. But that's what you need in life to get ahead is the good, the bad, and the in between. And I had many assignments that led me to several cities throughout the country. So it was an opportunity to be put into new and challenging environments on a regular basis. Several appointments were for the purpose of going in and either starting up an operation or cleaning up an operation. So with that, you accumulate these experiences over time. But 30 years later or so, you pretty much have run the gambit. That is a career, and looking for something just as a segue, because I wasn't ready to just sit on the end of a dock and fish all day at this stage of life. The beer thing, if you will, really just became an interest, and just through developing a friendship with Lee, and then starting to work with some other people, really started on somebody else's project where somebody was taking the initiative to develop a brewery, but they really didn't have any plan whatsoever. And that's what I do. That's where I'm from, the world of planning and execution though. So, you start developing models and different performers, and also you start running the gambit of all the ends of this business. When people talk about home brewing and they think that, well, gosh, this is really great. And for the most part, not to make it very stereotypical, but hanging out in the garage with a bunch of guys, isn't this awesome? And let's just go ahead and open a brewery. It'll be fun. There's so many realities beyond that point, going from home brewing to a commercial brewery. And you have to have experiences that are going to ultimately lead to a successful transition from that garage. First and foremost, you've got to model this. Whose model you use, whether you develop your own, use others online, get advice from friends, does not matter. But you need to know what your plan is, what you want to do. This is your vision, and how are you going to make it a reality? I would suggest first and foremost, you have at least 2, if not 3 times the money, the funds that you think you need in order to start up this brewery. Banks are not interested in loaning money for these, rightfully so. They know the pitfalls, they know the failure rate, especially with their money. So you better be ready to fund it, or have friends and family that are going to fund it for you. Amongst yourself and or your team that's involved with this, you've got to deal with the local municipality. You're going to deal with lawyers, architects, real estate brokers, insurance agents. You better have somebody on your team that knows how to negotiate a commercial real estate lease, or you can really get hosed on that front. You got to have reliable people around you that when pressure rises, and it will, I guarantee, that they're not going to fold, and everybody's committed from the onset to the finish. You personally, and Lee and I can definitely attest to this, since this was born as a side hustle, you better be able to work before dawn and after midnight. That's just a reality of what it takes to launch a new business. And there are times you're going to miss meals, you're going to miss sleep, and you better be an individual that when you do that, you can still perform at a high level, because there's no excuses. Once this business goes live, it doesn't matter how tired and stressed you are, you still need to provide great customer experience to the person that's standing in front of you. So you have to have a significant amount of intestinal fortitude in order to do this, because now this is a retail business, right? And you have customers, and it's a whole different ballgame. Amongst yourself and the team, you're going to need to cover an array of skills beyond making beer. Are you mechanically inclined? Are you technically savvy? Can you do the major physical work that's involved with a small scale brewery? If you're not able to do these things, you need to pay somebody else to do it, because that is reality. Once again, you're not manipulating, pots and pans and devices that you can physically handle anymore. I mean, the equipment gets quite sizable quickly, and the bags of grain are much bigger, and all those aspects that you've got to be able to deal with on a regular basis. So that's just really just setting this thing up and understanding that you need to have a complete program, a complete package, a plan that you're going to hone it and ultimately execute it, be willing to make adjustments along the way. But without a plan at the onset, I can pretty much guarantee you that the failure rate is going to be incredibly high. So that's the first and foremost what I would tell anybody, is to do your planning. I always like to say that there's nothing like an ill-conceived plan being poorly executed. So it all starts with the planning.
Mike, I think you should write a book of how to start a blueprint, because I was just locked and loaded. That you laid down everything. You laid it down like, hey, take this risk. You're going to have to, stay up late and wake up early, all this stuff. That was an excellent description from the business side. One thing you did touch upon, though, was obviously the beer and that transition from the home brewing to, this commercial side. So Lee, first and foremost, how did you get into home brewing? You went from a tennis player to starting this collection of equipment in your garage to the formation of side hustle. But how did home brewing get into your hands and in your mind?
Yeah, when I first got into craft beer, I became one of those, for lack of a better term, of the classic beer nerds. I mean, I was the one chasing every brewery I could go to, and online trading beers and just trying to get my hands on every next big beer, and I just became a beer fan. And there was a craft beer store that opened up in Hilton Head several years ago, and unfortunately, I spent way too much money there. Just happened to be on my way home every day, and got to know the guys there pretty well. And I noticed that they were selling homebrew kits, and so I thought, they kept seeing those homebrew kits, and I was like, maybe I need to try to learn to brew it myself, because I can save money, right? So I ended up taking the plunge, and bought the homebrew kit, and did a couple of batches, and they were, I don't know, pretty bad, I would imagine. And it was one of those things, kind of like golf, where you say, well, if I buy this driver, I can hit the ball 10 yards further, and if I buy this putter, I can make one more putter around. So homebrewing became that. Went from one piece of equipment to the next, to the next, to the next. Then suddenly there's no cars in the garage anymore. And then eventually my garage became a small brewery. Had 6 refrigerators in there, and just, it was ridiculous. So I just became obsessed with it, and just brewed hundreds and hundreds of batches, just trying to make something that tasted decent.